Hi everyone, I hope you guys are all well. It's been 2 weeks since my last review. I said I thought it would take me a couple of weeks and here we are. So what have I been up to? I've been working, obviously, still being at home as usual during this crazy time. But I actually had Thursday and Friday of this week off from work, and it was so lovely just to have a couple of days to recharge my batteries. I hadn't had any time off so far this year, so I needed it. I would have been spending these couple of days going to see Les Miserables on stage for the very first time, a musical I've never had a chance to see, and my mum and dad bought me a ticket, and then coronavirus hit and never got to see it. But we are going to go see it once theatres are back open again, and the theatre have already contacted us to say that they're looking to put us on for tickets for the next time it's back, which is brilliant. But yeah, so that's what I would have been doing. Instead, I spent my time doing a lot of reading. I did some writing, and I just felt myself come back to myself again, and I've been feeling so good these past few days. And yeah, back to work tomorrow, but you know, I'm recharged, I'm feeling good, so yay. For the theatre that I've been watching, I think last week I was really excited to see the National Theatre 12th Night production with Tamsin Grigg that I was talking about in my last review, and I was like, yay, really excited. And then I started watching it and I really didn't like it. There was something so off about it and jarring, and it didn't work for me. So but you know, I'm not going to like every single thing that the National Theatre shows. And then this week they released at last Frankenstein. This was the one production I was desperate during this time to see them stream on their YouTube page, and I was just like, hallelujah, because when it came out, this production of Frankenstein, tickets sold like that. You couldn't get hold of a ticket at all. And then when they were streaming it in the cinema, my local cinema, showed it twice technically because of the dual rolling, which I'll talk about in a second. But that was it. And the tickets sold like that. I've never got a chance to see it. And now I've seen it. I've watched it 3 times now. And oh my God, I just absolutely love it. So it's Benedict Cumberbatch and it was Johnny Lee Miller. And what they did was that they alternated it every night. So for one night, Benedict would play the creature and Johnny Lee Miller would play Frankenstein, and the next night they'd swap over. So it was this perspective of what makes a man, what makes a monster. Who is the monster, you know, kind of questioning, because you know how I love Frankenstein. I think it's an absolutely amazing novel. And what was so great was Danny Boyle, who directed it, took it from the perspective of the creature. It begins with the creature's birth. You see his development and everything. And then Frankenstein doesn't come in until an hour into the show, which is the halfway point. It's 1 act, 2 hours, 1 act. And it's absolutely fabulous. I watched it and I'm like, wow, please, I am begging the National Theatre to release their archive for DVD, because that, Jane Eyre and Treasure Island, I would gladly buy a copy of. As soon as it's available, I will buy a copy of it. It's absolutely thrilling. But this Danny Boyle production of Frankenstein is exquisite. The way that he was so faithful to the book, yet he changed it in order to have the emphasis be on the creature, not on Frankenstein. The way that he had Elizabeth be the Elizabeth from the novel, which is what me and my sister have talked about in a previous video, how various productions, she's this silly girl who doesn't understand anything, who's just a lovesick little puppy, but she's not in this one. She is the Elizabeth from the book. It was just so wonderfully constructed, and the lighting and the set design was exceptional. Absolutely loved it. I'm going to put a link below. They've put up both versions, where the first one is where Benedict is the creature and Johnny is Frankenstein, and the second one, which they premiered Friday, because Benedict's creature was Thursday, and then the next one on the Friday was where Johnny plays the creature and Benedict is Frankenstein. I personally think the better version is when Benedict is the creature, because he plays the creature better for me than Johnny. But then also with Frankenstein, Benedict's version of Frankenstein is a lot crueler, he's a lot harsher, and Johnny's one is more shocked and surprised, and in a way more emotional with Frankenstein. And I liked that balance that he had, whilst Benedict went very dark with his Frankenstein. So, and since I prefer Benedict's creature, the Benedict creature version then gets it right for me, because it's the perfect Frankenstein and it's the perfect creature. So there we go. So I will put a link to both of them in the description, but I really recommend the one where Benedict is the creature. Please watch it. It's 2 hours, and if you don't like it, you haven't paid anything for it, so go for it, try something new, and I really, really hope you enjoy it. And if you do, even if you don't, let me know your thoughts in the description of this video. But anyway, I've been going on for 6 minutes and I haven't even started the review yet, so here we go. Let's talk about Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This is my first experience of reading his books, one of his books, shall I say, and quite frankly, I don't think I will read another one. Right, so Crime and Punishment follows a guy called Rascal. Let me just put my teeth in. I am so bad with pronouncing unusual international surnames. It is one of my downfalls. And I've just filmed a video of the announcements for the next one. If you watch that, I stumble through that so badly. But yeah, right, here we go. So it's Raskolnikov. There we go. See, it's not with me. It's almost like I need to see the name, put it in my brain, break it down into segments, and then try and pronounce it. And it's just, for some reason, my brain today is just not woken up. I'm doing this at like 5 to 9 in the morning. So maybe that's why I need some coffee or something. Perk me up and it'll get me there. But basically, this guy is a former student. He's dropped out. He was doing law, and he dropped out of university. He's poor. He lives in this basically a little. It's actually referred to as a cupboard that he lives in because it's so small. He's badly in debt, and he receives a letter from his mother to say that his sister is having to marry this wealthy man who she doesn't really know, doesn't love at all, because they need the money. And he basically decides that, well, I'm poor, and this pawnbroker who I've been selling my goods to just to be able to survive is very rich and doesn't deserve it, but I deserve it because I'm poor and I've been through a lot, so I'm going to take it. And decides to murder this pawnbroker. But it's kind of implied that he's already been thinking about this for quite some time. And in the process of this happening, something happens at this murder scene, which he doesn't anticipate. And then the rest of the novel is him dealing with the psychological effect of killing someone, what that means, the investigation into what happened, and a spiraling of insanity ensues. And yeah, so the questions of morals of right and wrong, as you know, humans and everything, is what this book covers. So I went into this because I had never read any of his books. This is classed as his best book. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but it's one of those books where you basically know the synopsis and you know the ending, even if you've never read it, because it's one of those well-known kind of stories. So I knew how it ended. I knew that there was a murder that was going to happen, because obviously that's what the whole thing is about. But then at the same time, I had no idea what I was going into, and I nearly gave up multiple times, especially the first section, because it's split into, I think, is it 5 or 6 parts? Let me just check. 6 parts. And the first part is him explaining his life, going to the pawnbroker, meeting these characters, the letter from his mother, this plan, and then the murder. And that covers about 90 pages, I think it is. And I nearly gave up multiple times in those 90 pages because it is a slog. It is a really tough read. And I'm not saying tough because of the way it's just, his descriptions, like it's gory and none of that. It is so dry. He likes to elaborate on things that have like no relevance, or really have sections where the main character is by himself to talk about all of really long drawn out stuff, and yet then when he has scenes where it's a couple of people having a conversation, it's over like that. He really rushes some sections, and I'm like, dude, slow down, just and like the letter, he does the thing that Stephen King does, where like in this case it's a letter from home. I was like, everything's in a single paragraph. Okay, I can handle this for 1-2 pages, whatever. Yeah, fine. This letter goes on for about 15 pages, and I'm like, oh my God, just end it already. And the print's not that big either, so it's like, so that's, by the time I got to the actual end of part 1, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is crazy. And I was really happy when the murder happened, if I'm honest, because it meant something happened. And it was actually really well written. I didn't anticipate how harsh he was going to be with it. And then after that, it does take off, because you're in the psychological side of everything. But then at the same time, he's doing the same things where letters are like ridiculously long 1-paragraph sections. He's taking forever to talk about things when they don't need to be, and he's rushing elements that you really want to slow down on. And so because of that, I just found myself, I got to the point where I was like, when I was reading Moby Dick, if you haven't seen my Moby Dick review, go check it out, because that book almost killed me. I swear to God, I was punching the air when that book ended, because it made me feel sick to my absolute stomach, and it was so poorly constructed, and I hated it, absolutely hated it. I didn't hate like I hated Moby Dick, but I was like, oh, thank Christ that's over when I finished it this morning. Honest to God. But I just want to give you a little bit of an understanding of what he's like when he starts bringing in the psychological element of this story. So the murder has happened. He's just got home and he's lying on his bed. So here we go. Okay. So this is the first chapter of part 2 of the book. So that's part 1. So that's where the murder is literally probably about, no, a bit more than that. Probably about, that's the build up to the murder. That's the murder. That's the aftermath. Yeah. So here we go. So he's just got home after committing this murder. He lay like that for a very long time. Occasionally he seemed to wake up, and in those moments noticed that night had come long ago, yet it did not occur to him to get up. Finally he noticed light as if it were already daytime. He was lying on his back on the sofa, still stupefied for his recent oblivion. Terrible, desperate screams came to him sharply from the street, which, by the way, he heard under his window every night between 2 and 3 o'clock. They were what awakened him now. Ah, so the drunks are coming out their taverns, he thought. It's past 2. And suddenly he jumped up as if someone had torn him from the sofa. What? Past 2 already? He sat down on the sofa and remembered everything. Suddenly, in an instant, he remembered everything. That's not me repeating, but that is literally what, because at first that confused me. I'm like, why are you saying remember everything again? That was odd. At first he thought he would lose his mind. A terrible chill seized him, but the chill was also caused by a fever that had begun long ago in his sleep. Now, however, he was suddenly stricken with a sudden shivering that his teeth almost flew out and everything in him came loose. He opened the door and began to listen. The whole house was fast asleep. He looked with amazement at himself and everything in the room around him, unable to understand how, when he came back yesterday, he had forgot to put the door on the hook and threw himself on the sofa, not only without undressing, but even still wearing his hat. It had rolled off and was lying right there on the floor near his pillow. If anyone has come in, what would they have thought? That I'm drunk? But he dashed to the window. There was light enough, and he hurriedly began looking himself all over from head to foot, all his clothes. Were there any traces? But that was no way to do it. Chilled and shivering, he began taking everything off and examining it all again more thoroughly. He turned everything over and over to his last thread and scrap, and not trusting himself, repeating the examination 3 times. But there seemed to be nothing. No traces except one place where the cuff of his trousers had frayed and hung up like a fringe. There was a thick trace of caked blood on that fringe. He seized a big clasp knife and cut the fringe off. There seemed to be nothing else. Suddenly he remembered that the purse and the things that he had taken from the old woman's trunk were still in his pockets. Until now he had not even thought of taking them out and hiding them. He had not even remembered about them while he was examining his clothes. What was wrong with him? He rushed at once, took them out and threw them on the table. Having taken everything out, he even reversed the pockets to make sure nothing was left. He carried the whole pile into a corner. There, in the very corner, low down, the wallpaper was coming away and was torn in one place. He at once began stuffing everything into the hole behind the paper. It all fits, everything out of sight, and the purse too, he thought joyfully, straightening up and staring dumbly at the hole in the corner, which bulged more than ever. Suddenly he shook all over in horror. My God, he whispered in despair, what's wrong with me? Do you call that hidden? Is that any way to hide things? True, he had not been counting on things. He thought that there would only be money, and therefore not to prepare a place ahead of time. But now, why was I rejoicing now? Is that any way to hide things? Reason truly is abandoning me. Exhausted, he sat down on the sofa and was seized at once by an unbearable shivering. Mechanically, he pulled on his former student's greatcoat, warm but now almost in rags, which was lying next to him on a chair, covered himself with it, and once more sleep and delirium took hold of him. He sank into oblivion. No more than 5 minutes later, he jumped up again and immediately, in a frenzy, rushed again into his clothes. How could I have fallen asleep again when nothing has been done? That's it, the loop under the armhole. I haven't removed it yet. I forgot. Such a thing, such evidence, and I forgot. He pulled the loop off and quickly began tearing it to pieces, stuffing them under the pillow amongst his linen. Pieces of torn cloth will never arouse suspicion. No, probably not, he repeated, standing in the middle of the room. And with painful, strained attention, he began looking around again, on the floor and everywhere, to see if he had forgotten anything else. The conviction that everything, even money, even simple reasoning power, was abandoning him, began to torment him unbearably. What can it be starting already? Can the reckoning come so soon? See, there it is! Indeed, the shreds of fringe he had cut off his trousers were simply lying on the floor in the middle of the room for the first comer to see. What can be wrong with me? He cried again, like a lost man. So as you can see, everything is kind of chaotic. His insanity is already kind of starting. He's confused. He doesn't know what to do and everything. And it is that frenzied movement. I thought, oh, right, this is picking up now. Finally, hey, here we go. And then it just kind of went a bit weird. And I just like, the pacing is so odd, and I don't really care about the characters. I found it more interesting from a psychological point of view then a character development point of view, the various other characters who pop up, the things that get investigated, and I really didn't like this kind of holier than thou because I'm poor point of view as to why it's justified what he's done. It was odd. And I know it's that thing that, you know, sometimes you can never understand a character and the things that they do, and this is a case of one of them for me. Like especially with the ending, with his ending, with everybody's ending, because the last section you learn what has happened after a bit of time and the various characters in that, and even then it's kind of like shrugging your shoulders, kind of like, well, it is what it is, and I thought I was justified with what I did, so yeah, shrug your shoulders, and it was just kind of wrong. But maybe that's what Dostoevsky was looking at, with themes of not just poverty and wealth, but also things to do with the levels of society and the way it viewed different people in society. How because obviously at the time that it was written as well, there was a lot of stuff going on politically and such as well. So maybe because I don't necessarily understand the politics of the time in Russia and what was going on, that I don't understand how certain things can be justified. It's maybe I need to learn more about the politics and everything to really appreciate and understand what he's saying and look into more themes and everything. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, should I need to do that? Should I need to do my own research and everything to be able to understand a book that's, I feel odd with this book. I didn't really like the characters. The construction worked pretty well in parts, but in others it really didn't. The pace was all off. I didn't really like the main character, but then he's one of these characters I'm not really sure that you're meant to like him. Not dislike him in regards to, oh my god, he's so fucking evil, I can't possibly be around him. No, more like there's just there's something off. I don't like this, kind of thing. But I'll hang around him for the course of this book, but that's pushing it. I know, because he's not an evil guy. It's just his viewpoint on the world, saying, I'm poor, I've been through a lot, my family's going through this, and you've got a load of money when you don't deserve it, so I do, so that's my justification. It's very interesting to read that. So yeah, I feel a bit funny with this book. I really do. But because my gut, and probably my facial expression right now, is saying, no, I have to give it a thumbs down, I'm afraid. So the big questions, would I read this again? No, I don't think so. In a way, I'm glad that I read it, but at the same time, I feel like I've wasted 2 weeks of my life reading this book. I was like, thank Christ that's over when it was over, like with Moby Dick. Would I read any more of his books? Unlikely. Sorry, Dostoevsky. I can't justify reading another one of his books right now. I kind of feel, oh my god, am I like the main character, trying to justify and not justify certain elements of life and everything, and why I should go and read other books of his, I can't. I honest to God, I don't think I could go through the slog of what I've just read again. Would I recommend this to somebody? Now that's a tough one, because for enjoyment, no. But for an interesting psychological perspective on humans and how we respond to certain things, maybe. Yeah, maybe I would. But it's a grey area kind of one. But I would let them know that they're in for a slog. It's going to be hard, and there are going to be. I'm trying not to give away any plot points here. This is really tough. There are going to be elements where you are going to be. You're going to be in a weird position for morals versus understanding the psychological point at which this man is when certain things happen. That's the best way I could describe it, and that sounds terrible, but that's all I can think of to say, because I'm just thinking about all of this slog. Like I said, I mean, the murder is like, oh, hang on, about there, and right, so yeah, that's the build up to the murder, that's the murder, that's the rest of it. I'm talking about in the rest of it here, various psychological stages where he's at, where he's doing things, and things come up. Yeah, so although it was on my 100 book bucket list poster and I'm going to scratch it off, I am never going to read this book again. Moby Dick was on that poster as well, and I'm never going to read that book again. So yeah, sorry, Dostoevsky. It was an interesting read, but I can't go back there. I can't do it. So those are my thoughts on Crime and Punishment. Yeah, it's been a bit weird couple of weeks. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comment box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Entirely up to you, I'll decide. I've already filmed my announcement video, which is uploading right now. I've been uploading it whilst filming this video, so I will get that to you ASAP. And in that, I'll announce the next 5 books I'm going to be reading with a new theme. So I hope you enjoy it. And even though that was a bit of a weird review for Crime and Punishment, because it was very hard to talk about without giving away plot points and everything, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that review as well. And go watch Frankenstein, because it's absolutely fantastic. I'll leave the links in the description below for the 2 different versions for you to have a look at. But the one where Benedict is the creature and Johnny is Frankenstein is the one that I absolutely recommend, because it's fantastic. All right, then, guys. Bye.